研究生会组织这样的对话，而且他们要求要在这次游行示威中，经过不合法的手续临时组织起来的所谓高等学校学生自治联合会来组织对话。
Some student activists were trying to institute elections, and they were getting support on campus.
未来跟政府对话，以哪个机构来代表我们去跟政府对话？因为政府现在特别强调合法性问题，我们要选出一个合法的机构去代表我们跟政府对话。
Through elections on many campuses, a student dialogue group was formed. The students now changed their tactics. Rather than demanding official recognition as a precondition for dialogue, they were willing to talk right away. And they wanted to talk about their constitutional rights.
The aim of dialogue was not to solve everything at once. We wanted to establish some ground rules, open up some channels for communication, so that whenever problems arose, there'd be ways of resolving them. We wanted to lay some foundations for the future. We wanted to make a good start. What we were hoping for was gradual progress, reform, not cataclysmic change, not revolution. Because honestly, in 1989, the situation wasn't so bad that people felt they needed a revolution.
A new path seemed to be opening up. A path leading away from the confrontational politics that had dominated China for decades. The path China had long ago failed to take. On May 4th, China celebrated the 70th anniversary of the demonstrations of 1919, when patriotic students had first protested against an unresponsive government. There were two celebrations on that day: the government-sponsored commemorations at the monument and a mass student march from the university district to Tiananmen Square. The students sang a patriotic song from the 1930s. In official Communist Party history, the student protests of 1919 were but a prelude to the party's revolutionary makeover of China. But in fact, many of the leading voices of the May 4th era spoke not for revolution, but for democratic reform. After their days of street protest, many students went back to school, took up various professions, and continued to work for social change. Those who saw no hope for reform joined the Communist Party to fight for an ideal society. Over the decades, the voices championing gradual change were either stifled by conservative power holders or drowned out by cries for revolution. By marching into Tiananmen Square, the students of 1989 were saying to the party, "We are the true inheritors of the democratic legacy of the May 4th movement." But the May 4th spirit they were most familiar with was the one the party had taught them.
In the value system of the Communist Party, revolution is placed at the top. So comrades are called revolutionary comrades, couples revolutionary couples, and families revolutionary families. Everything is revolutionary. Reform is not a good word in communist vocabulary. What we were trying to do was to introduce the idea of incremental change to the people of China. We were trying to tell them that reform was not a bad thing, and that revolution often failed to deliver its promise.
Once again, the government had not suppressed the march. In fact, the leaders at the top were deeply divided on how to deal with the protesters. On the very day of the May 4th anniversary, Party Secretary General Zhao Ziyang made a speech that departed surprisingly from the hardline April 26th editorial. In a nationally televised meeting with foreign bankers, Zhao told his audience that there was no serious turmoil in China. Duihua, dialogue, Zhao said, was the solution to the present tension. The students now debated. Should they go back to class and show support for this conciliatory attitude? Or did Zhao Ziyang's remarks indicate deep rifts in the central government that must be exploited by pushing harder, going farther? Many students went back to class.
On May 8th, several leaders of the Independent Student Union of my university came to see me. They complained about the students who had returned to class and said they wanted to blockade the classrooms. I said, I thought you were demanding democracy. A basic principle of democracy is the right of individual choice. If you deprive others of their choice, how is that different from the way the Communist Party has always deprived you of your choice? It had not even occurred to them that this was a problem. They couldn't come up with any good arguments in response, but they still felt uncomfortable. They said, then how can we get anything done? In China, everything has always been handled this way. Only by preventing others from doing what they want can you accomplish what you want. The movement at Beijing University also reached a low point. More and more students returned to class. A lot of energy was wasted debating whether we should go back to class or not. I felt increasingly frustrated.
At that time, I thought we should resume classes because I felt a stalemate like this wouldn't necessarily get us anywhere. And the students were pretty tired.
On May 10th, Wang Dan gave an interview to a Canadian television reporter.
I think that the student movement should move on to a new stage. No more large-scale, intense street action. No more boycotting classes. Instead, we need down-to-earth work to build democracy on campus. The legalization of student organizations, independent student newspapers and radio stations, and so on. This work might not look all that grand or glamorous, but it's extremely important.
And yet, over the heads of the prominent student leaders still hung the People's Daily editorial of April 26th, the shadow of Dongluan. That threat cut off any impulse toward moderation.
Once we were chatting, I said, how many years do political offenders get? Someone said it used to be 3 years, then it was increased to 5 years, then 7, and then 17 years. I felt very sad. If I got 17 years, I'd be 40 by the time I got out. I really didn't want that to happen.
On May 11th, 6 of us discussed the situation. We had placed a lot of hope on talks with the government, but they kept putting it off. We feared that the movement